Hello and welcome back to some familiar surroundings. For the second time this week, we're back in RaceRoom, we're back at Brands Hatch, and we're back in a BMW. However, today it's not the GT3 class, it's the BMW M235i Cup around the shorter Indy circuit here at Brands Hatch. Now, if you did watch my previous RaceRoom video in the week, you'll know that I had a little bit of a grumble about the current state of the game. Well, I'm pleased to say it looks like most of these bugs and issues have been resolved. RaceRoom have now released an update, hopefully containing fixes for the HUD and timings issues that we've all experienced over the past few weeks. So to give it a try, I thought I'd hop on for some rank racing on Saturday afternoon. And it all looked really encouraging. There wasn't a problem in sight. I did 3 races, including this one, which is an absolute cracker. Now, of course, we won last time out at Brands Hatch, and we've picked up right where we left off in qualifying. We've put it on pole position. However, this is Brands Hatch Indy. The racing is always incredibly tight here. We're only 0.005 of a second ahead of Jonathan Carlson in second. And in fact, the entire top 10 is separated by just 0.5 of a second. That's how close it is as we wait for the lights to go green. Oh, in our GT3 race the other day, we shifted up into second too early. I think we might have gone the opposite way this time. We stayed too long on the rev limiter. That's allowed Carlson to get up the inside. And Durlo too, by the looks of it. Yeah, we were just too sluggish off the start. We couldn't get over to the defensive line, and that left a gaping hole. And there's going to be another one coming through if we're not careful. We were side by side with Dennis Rickardsson going through Druid's hairpin there. Thankfully, we've managed to hold on to the position, but Rickardsson's right behind. In fact, he gives us a bump going into Graham Hill Bend. Thankfully, it didn't send us into a spin. We're able to stay facing in the right direction, but we're being harassed now by Dennis Rickardsson. An absolutely frantic first lap, and I don't think it's going to settle down anytime soon, because look at this battle in front. Carlson is trying to tuck it up the inside of Durlo, going through clearways. He's managed it. There was a lot of contact there, but he's forced his way through to lead this race as we end lap 1. And as we head to Paddock Hill Bend, I want to resist the temptation to make a reckless lunge. We're just going to hold back, but that does invite Rickardsson to make a move up the inside. Ideally, I'd like to defend going into Druids, but I think Rickardsson might be a bit too close. I'm going to try and keep it as tight as possible. There's contact. We get nudged out wide into Druids' hairpin. And look at the leader, Carlson. He's almost out of control coming down the hill. There was even more contact with Durlo there, but he's managed to hold on to the lead for the time being. And unbelievably, we're still in third as well. Although Rickardsson tried that move up the inside into Druids, we were able to hold the momentum. But we've picked up 8 incident points from 2 pieces of contact. Make that 3, because that was the biggest hit of the lot. I had no choice but to brake a little bit earlier into clearways there, given how closely these 2 ahead are fighting. But Rickardsson came steaming in there. We took a big hit from behind. I thought I was going to lose control. We've managed to keep it facing in the right direction, and somehow we're still in 3rd position. And as we exit Paddock Hill Bend, look at the leader, Carlson. He's out onto the gravel. Durlo's down on speed. There's a gap. We've got to go for it into Druids. Durlo's going to try and shut the door. There's big contact. We're side by side for the lead of this race. Currently, we've just got our noses ahead, but we're going to have the outside line into Graham Hill Bend. That's probably not going to work, so we're going to have to give the lead back to Durlo. But we're up to 2nd position. We've actually lost Carlson from the race. He's DNF'd. And we're still being hounded by Rickardsson behind. But what sort of pressure can we apply on Durlo in front here? Is he rattled from that incident with Carlson? We're right on his tail now out of clearways. Oh, and he's going into the pits. Incredible. That puts us into the lead of this race. What has happened to Durlo there? Did he pick up some damage in the contact with Carlson, or did he perhaps jump the start? We'll have to go back and check out a replay in a minute, but for now we've got to deal with Rickardsson behind. He's like a wasp. No matter how many times I tried to swat him away, he's not going anywhere. And it looks like he's bringing David Van Den Toorn to join in the fun as well. So it's a new 3-car battle for the lead, but amazingly it doesn't involve either Durlo or Carlson. But yeah, let's check out the replay, see if we can see what happened to Durlo there. Okay, that's me on pole position, but keep your eye on Durlo right behind me. Yes, he just rolls forward there, way before the lights went green. So that would have definitely earned him a drive-through penalty and explains why he made that dash into the pits. But we'll continue with the replay here as the lights go green. As you can see, I just missed my chance to move over to the inside and defend that line. Carlson was already there, so I had no choice but to leave him some space. That opened up a gap for Durlo to jump through as well. as we see someone in the background losing it big time coming out of Paddock Hill Bend there. I wonder if he took anyone else with him. Meanwhile, Ricardsen's trying to tuck it up the inside, going through Druid's hairpin. We swap a bit of paint on exit, but we just about managed to hold the position into Graham Hill Bend. But yeah, going back to Paddock Hill, it was a miracle that back marker didn't take anyone else out. This is the spin, and he just seemed to stay firmly on the gas. Look at that. Incredibly, all the cars get by. On to lap 2 then, and once again we have to be tough to stand up to Ricardsen coming up to Druid's hairpin. He's having another look up the inside. We're unable to close the gap. There's a little bit of contact that pushes me out a tiny bit wide, but again we managed to stay in front of him, but it's really rough in there. And in hindsight, I maybe should have given him a little bit more space. And speaking of space, there was none given here between these two in front. Look how close Durlo is on the tail of Carlson. In fact, too close. It might have been contact that nudges Carlson out onto the gravel. But with Durlo down on speed, I'm going to try the Ricardsen move. It's my turn to try and force my way up the inside. And this time it's me causing the contact. So yeah, really aggressive driving from everyone at the front of this pack over these opening few laps, but the most aggressive of all was certainly this move from Durlo on Carlson coming into Paddock Hill Bend. There's the contact, but he doesn't ease off, he stays on the gas, more contact, that pushes Carlson out onto the gravel. You'll see my car in the mirror. I'm going to make a dive up the inside. Perhaps it was a little bit of an ambitious move. There was certainly a lot of contact, although we didn't pick up any instant points, so perhaps it was just about fair. However, this was a little bit too close. Durlo nudging out Carlson onto the gravel. And of course, with the benefit of hindsight, we know that Durlo is going to come into the pits at the end of this lap to serve a drive-through penalty. And unfortunately for Carlson, he's going to lose it on the exit of Druids, and that's his race done. Speaking of losing it, at the end of lap 3, we lost 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th, all spinning out on the approach to clearways. There are BMWs going everywhere at the end of this lap. Back to the live action then, and I was really hoping that I could gap Dennis Ricardsen behind, but it just wasn't happening. Ricardsen was really fast, he was staying right with me, and that was forcing me to drive defensively at every available opportunity, such as the entry into Druid's hairpin, just keeping a tight line, trying to force Ricardsen to the outside, but you can see how close behind he is, and that was unsettling me, I must admit. In the first couple of laps alone, we got hit 3 times by Ricardsen. Now, admittedly, one of those occasions was probably down to my aggressive defending, but we picked up 12 instant points from those 3 contacts. And that worry is right at the forefront of my mind now. Is Ricardsen going to hit us again if he gets too close? We really don't want to pick up any more instant points. It would be devastating to get disqualified from this race. However, there is a glimmer of hope, because as we cross the line, we've just taken the fastest lap from Ricardsen, a 50.9. So hopefully we can just keep Ricardsen far enough behind to avoid any more contact. And for the next couple of laps, that's what we tried our very best to do, but we just couldn't shake Ricardsen. He was always within half a second, no matter how hard we tried. Now, if you're a regular viewer of my videos, you'll know that I'm usually a far better driver when I'm chasing someone, when I'm being harassed from behind. That's normally when I crumble under pressure, so I'm trying really hard to maintain my focus here and not make any mistakes that will give Ricardsen the chance to take the lead of this race. Into Paddock Hill Bend then, you can see Ricardsen closing in once more, and he's just regained the fastest lap, Ricardsen. So he is closing the gap, and before too long we're going to have to deal with back markers too. There are 2 drivers just a little bit further ahead who could possibly throw a spanner into the works, so things are getting really tense here. We knew this race wasn't going to be relaxing. Now, we are always just a little bit faster out of Graham Hill Bend than Ricardsen, and we open up a bit of a gap, but he's faster through this section. Watch him in the rearview mirror. He's going to close right in now. In fact, he's going to go around the outside. Has he gone in too hot? The yellow flags are out. That might mean that Ricardsen's in the gravel, and he is. And for the first time in this race, we've got some real breathing room. We're almost 2 seconds clear. Yeah, I've got to admit that seeing Ricardsen disappear into the gravel there was a real weight off my shoulders. I was worried about the potential of more contact, but he just runs it way too hot here. He's never going to make the apex. He's out into the gravel, and Van den Toorn gets into second spot. Well, we always knew that back markers were going to play a part in this race at some point, and now we are rapidly approaching that point. We're into the second half of the race. There's 6 minutes to go, and you can see 2 cars ahead that we're closing in on fast. Van den Toorn is still nearly 2 seconds behind. We've managed to maintain that gap over the previous couple of laps, but things are going to get really tough now, because not only have we got back markers to deal with, we've got back markers who are fighting for position, and that makes it an even trickier proposition to get around them. Just run a little bit wide on exit out of Druids there, took a bit more of the curb than I would have liked, and that's going to give Van den Toorn a chance. A quick glance at the relative board shows me that it's now 1.5 seconds, so he's taken several tenths out of me over that last lap. So the pressure is starting to rise, and it's only going to get more intense now because we're right with this back marker, Bert Reid. Thankfully, he's just dropped off the pace in the battle for 16th, so that might work in our favour. Hopefully he'll be a little bit more giving and allow us to pass through unchallenged. We're pulled alongside him as we cross the start-finish line now. We've got the inside line into Paddock Hill Bend. That should get the move done. Yes, it has. We've passed Reid. We haven't lost too much time either, so hopefully now Reid might be able to delay Van den Toorn slightly. I'm keeping half an eye on the rearview mirror. Is Van den Toorn going to be able to get through on the inside into Druids? It looks like he has. Reid moves over to one side. So okay, we've navigated the first back marker. Both of us are through. Van den Toorn is now 1.3 seconds behind. And next up is Gilman and Felak, and unlike Reid, these two are battling position. They're involved in a right battle here. So we're going to have to be really careful, but at the same time we don't want to ease off, because that'll invite Van den Toorn to close that gap, and Felak is out onto the gravel. That's surely going to give David Gilman the chance to power through into 17th, and hopefully there'll be a bit of a gap between them. These two guys aren't fighting anymore. In fact, there's a space up the inside into Paddock Hill Bend, so we're going to try and make the same move as on the last lap. We've got around Felak. Oh, but wait a minute, he's going to have a look back up the inside into Druids, does he know? Thankfully he's not. Thankfully he's backed out. I thought for a moment there that he was going to try and unlap himself. He's actually run really wide into Druids, and that's let Van den Toorn through, and that gap now is coming down to the driver in second place. It's less than a second for the first time in this race. Right, David Gilman is next up then. What can we do about getting around him? If we can get past Gilman cleanly, we might have a bit of a clearer track. But that red BMW in the rearview mirror is looking bigger than ever now. It's 0.8 of a second back to Van den Toorn. He's closing right in. Can we get by Gilman the same way that we've got by the two previous back markers? Up the inside into Paddock Hill. It's going to be the move again. And as we hit the apex, yes, we're through, and Gilman runs it wide to let Van den Toorn through as well. So fair play to all these back markers. They've been absolutely first class in letting us front runners through, even though it's affected their own battle for position. Credit to all three of them, but now the battle is on, because look how close Van den Toorn is behind me. It's half a second now. And we were worried about dealing with the pressure from Ricardson earlier in this race, and now we've got to deal with it all over again, only this time it's Van den Toorn. It does look like Ricardson got out of the gravel trap here at Clearways fairly quickly, because he's still in third place and he's only 4.5 seconds behind. However, I think that's just a bit too big a gap for him to trouble us. It's going to be a two-car race to the checkered flag now, because there's less than 3 minutes left here at Brands Hatch. And just look at the driver stats in the TV tower at the top left of the screen. We're almost identical, both in rating and reputation, so we're incredibly evenly matched here. It's all set for a grandstand finish to this race. Van den Toorn looks a little bit faster through Druid's hairpin. That may be because I was being a bit overly defensive on entrance, but we're a little bit quicker through Graham Hill Bend. We just seem to get on the gas that little bit faster and can stretch out a tenth or two. Now, I don't know if I could be a bit quicker if I went into fifth through this section, but I prefer it on the limiter in fourth. I just find it keeps the car a bit more stable. And we're actually doing a fairly decent job of keeping Van den Toorn at bay at the minute. That gap is still 0.7 of a second. And as we cross the line, there's still 2 minutes to go, so that'll mean 3 more laps. We do have a back marker 3.5 seconds down the road. Hopefully that's just far enough ahead that it won't trouble us. Although as I say that, he's just rejoining after an excursion into the sand, so now we are going to have to deal with another back marker. And oh, we've missed the apex into Druid's hairpin as well. We've gone out really wide. That's surely going to give Van den Toorn an opportunity. I was half expected to see him dash through up the inside there. Thankfully he didn't. I think that 0.7 of a second advantage we eked out has saved us there. But Van der Toorn will have seen that mistake. He'll be smelling blood at this point. He'll be ready to pounce. We're closing right in on the back marker, Carlson. It's absolutely vital that we get past him cleanly. There's a gap up the inside, although I do just have to get off the throttle. I was worried about running into him, and that's going to cost us some momentum. We should still be able to tuck it up the inside into Paddock Hill Bend, but Van der Toorn is right on our tail. It looks like we're past even before we get to the apex of the corner. Van der Toorn's through as well. There was a little bit of contact between the two of them, but it hasn't slowed Van der Toorn down. So we can't make the same mistake again coming into Druids. We've got to hold that inside line. Thankfully we have done, so there's no way through for Van der Toorn here. Mercifully, the gap is still half a second, so while it stays like that, Van der Toorn isn't quite close enough to make a move. We're going to get one more lap after this one. So one more lap to hold our nerve. Again, we keep it on the limiter in fourth, and we're actually going to run a little bit wide. We're not going to make the apex. Is that going to leave a gap up the inside for Van der Toorn to try? He's going to have a sniff. He's not quite close enough, but now he's all over us like a rash. One lap to go, and it's anybody's race at this point. We've got the advantage. Of course we have, because we're in front, but we're under real pressure now. Van der Toorn taking a really wide entry into Paddock Hill Bend. He's going to want to dash up the inside here, so we're going to go straight to the inside line, close that gap off. We're going to hug the apex, so there's no way through, and there's contact. Will we both get through in one piece, and we've still got the advantage coming down the hill to Graham Hill Bend. Half a lap to go, and we know we're faster out of this section, so we might just be able to open up a tenth or two. 0.4 of a second is the gap. It's just this clearway section left to go. The checkered flag is out. We're almost home. It's absolutely essential that we take a defensive line through here. We don't want to leave any gap, but we do get on the gas just a little bit too early. I had no choice but to lift to stop us getting sucked out into the gravel. That's going to cost us a little bit of speed. Van der Toorn's tried everything he can, but we just hold on. Oh, what a race, and another victory at Brands Hatch. Well, that was a pretty intense final lap, wasn't it? I thought this was the point where Van der Toorn was going to make his move, so we moved over to the inside on the approach to Druids as quickly as we could, just to try and shut off the gap. There's a little bit of contact there. Thankfully, it wasn't enough to spin the rear of my car around. That would have been devastating. And by the end of the lap, I was really starting to sweat. I was feeling the pressure here, and although we managed to make the apex and take the perfect defensive line, we almost threw it all away by getting on the gas just a little bit too early. I had to lift off the throttle just for a fraction of a second so that we could get the car pointing in the right direction. It did cost us some speed, but thankfully we had just enough of an advantage to hold on. But that's how close it was going down the start-finish straight. Incredible stuff. So let's take a look at the classified results then, and for the second time this week we stand top of the podium. Our best lap was a 50.8, and it was Ricardson in the end who took the fastest lap of the race. His was a 50.7. So had he not run wide into the gravel at Clearways, I strongly suspect that Ricardson would have had a say in the final outcome of this race. So in conclusion, it's great to see RaceRoom seemingly back to its best on track. I hope you've enjoyed watching the video as much as I enjoyed racing in it. Thanks for watching. Cheers.